Why, radar?
Oh, well, sometimes I can tell what's going to happen before it happens.
She was smugly indifferent to my performances. She was kicking me.
That was fun and hard to work on. I wrote it to all the people who were writing on the show at the time.
82-year-old Gary Burghoff has dropped a truth bomb that's rippling through MASH fandom. The co-star who made his life hell? None other than Alan Alda. Burghoff now claims Alda's charm was nothing more than a mask hiding a relentless manipulator. Think you know everything about MASH? This revelation adds a whole new chapter you've never heard before. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Gary Burghoff was living what many actors would consider a dream. Starring in MASH, a show beloved by millions, he became a household name as the cheerful, quirky Radar O'Reilly. The character adored for his boyish innocence and uncanny ability to know exactly when the choppers were coming. For viewers, Radar wasn't just a character, he was the heart of the 4077 Teth, embodying the humanity many felt defined the series. And the cast, with their on-screen laughs and heartfelt moments, seemed like a real family, but what audiences saw couldn't have been further from reality, for Burghoff at least. That sense of being expendable became painfully clear as the show evolved. Burghoff found himself repeatedly clashing with the producers over creative decisions, frustrated that his input was being either overlooked or outright dismissed. Radar was more than a comedic side character, Gary believed. He wanted to explore his depth, but attempts to push those boundaries were shut down. Over time, he saw his character's storyline shrinking, and where he once stood out, he felt squeezed into a smaller and smaller box. For a long time, he soldiered on, but this wasn't just about being sidelined creatively. The tension extended to his personal relationships within the cast. Burghoff was known to retreat to his trailer between takes, gradually pulling away from the group. Castmate Loretta Sweet once remarked on the distance, noting how Gary often seemed like he was in his own world, while the rest of the cast shared tighter bonds. He called the set a psychological battlefield, a far cry from the lighthearted humor fans enjoyed every week. One of the clearest signs for Gary that something was amiss came in smaller, everyday moments. Ideas he brought up in production meetings were dismissed without consideration, only to later reappear with another actor spotlighted. Scripts that once showcased Radar's unique role in the 4077th started prioritizing other characters, leaving Burghoff wondering if his contributions even mattered. As this strained atmosphere dragged on, Gary began connecting the dots. He believed one particular co-star stood out as a catalyst for much of this alienation. If there was one person who had the influence to shape these events, it was clear to Burghoff who it might be. His frustrations weren't just directed at producers, nor did he feel that his struggles were without cause. He started to sense that this colleague, with their charm and leadership style, had quietly played a significant role in making him feel overlooked and undermined. It's ironic that so much of Radar's appeal lay in his innocence and loyalty, traits that Gary brought out through his own earnestness. But on the set of MASH, loyalty was replaced by politics, and his attempts to capture something deeper in Radar often seemed overshadowed by other dynamics. Producers were hands-off when it came to resolving interpersonal tension, leaving the actor increasingly disillusioned. By the later years, Burghoff was inwardly counting down the days until he could leave the series altogether. When the moment of realization struck Gary that the warmth and unity he thought existed among the cast was built on little more than surface-level goodwill, it was less of a shock than a slow, painful acceptance. What he once saw as a team working together to make something beautiful now felt fractured, weighed down by an atmosphere where ambition quietly overshadowed collaboration. If MASH had been Gary's dream job, it slowly became something else entirely, a burden that left him second-guessing his self-worth. From the outside, Alda was everything a star should be. He wasn't just a lead actor, he was the star who wrote, directed, and, as Burghoff saw it, influenced nearly every decision made on the show. Burghoff claimed that nothing happened on that show unless Alan wanted it to happen. At first, he didn't think much of Alda's influence. After all, who would object to someone as charismatic and seemingly collaborative as Alda stepping up to lead? But over time, it became clear to Gary that Alda wasn't simply guiding creative decisions, he was shaping using them to benefit himself at the expense of others. This wasn't something Gary came to believe overnight. It crept up, starting as subtle but undeniable signs on set. Scripts began leaning heavier and heavier in Alda's direction. Episodes increasingly emphasized Hawkeye's arc, or more precisely, Alda's personal interpretation of Hawkeye. Burghoff felt that Radar, once an integral part of the storylines, was being pushed to the margins, and it wasn't just in the dialogue. There were little moments, small redirections during filming, and editorial decisions that seemed to carve space for Alda while chipping it away from Gary. As the imbalance became impossible to ignore, one moment in particular stuck out as a breaking point for Burghoff. It was during a highly emotional scene requiring vulnerability from his character. For someone like Gary, who poured his heart into each take, moments like these were essential to proving Radar wasn't just comic relief. But during this scene, Burghoff noticed something strange. Alda flubbed his lines, then flubbed them again. Gary believed Alda's actions weren't random. He suspected they were rooted in something deeper. According to Burghoff, Alda's influence wasn't just about creative control, it was also a way to maintain dominance, both on the screen and behind the scenes. Gary felt that Alda resented Radar's popularity and sought to minimize it, turning what might have been a supportive working relationship into a quiet war. Burghoff referred to Alda's demeanor as a god complex, an attitude that established him as untouchable in the hierarchy of the production. While Alda was celebrated as the star, Gary found himself slipping further into obscurity. Worse, Gary began to realize just how alone he was in navigating this dynamic. Producers seemed unwilling, or maybe afraid, to question Alda's decisions. Other cast members, even those Gary considered friendly, rarely stepped in to acknowledge the growing tension. By the time Burghoff's frustrations had reached their peak, he felt entirely isolated. The camaraderie that fans and critics assumed existed within the cast was nowhere to be found. It was Alda's world, and Gary was merely a fixture in it, replaceable and expendable anytime Alda decided it no longer served him. All of this set the stage for a choice Gary didn't make lightly. Remaining on MASH meant enduring the condescension, the coldness, and the manipulation, all things he saw in Alda's increasingly overbearing presence. And Gary started to notice something even more troubling. He was no longer excited to show up for work. Call times turned into moments of dread. Rehearsals felt like battles, and after filming wrapped, he retreated to his trailer to escape it all. He later reflected on this time by saying, "Leaving MASH saved my soul." It was more than stepping away from a role. He saw it as necessary for his survival. Staying, he feared, would have destroyed him emotionally, spiritually, and even physically. His decision to leave MASH wasn't about a vague story of wanting to spend time with his family, as the public believed for years. That narrative was convenient, but it wasn't real. For Gary, walking away was about refusing to lose himself in an environment where the power dynamics felt unshakable, and Alan Alda was always at the center. Gary Burghoff's revelations cast a long shadow over the idyllic image of MASH fans have cherished for decades. At 82, he finally admitted the real reason for his departure, explaining, "I don't want to die with lies on my tongue." To him, leaving wasn't just a career decision, it was survival. The set, which appeared so vibrant on screen, had drained him emotionally, spiritually, and even physically. It raises a difficult question: how often do beloved shows hide the struggles of their stars? Gary's story serves as a reminder that what we see on screen rarely tells the full truth.